So during one of my YouTube music live streams, a dear subscriber by the name of Platinum Black brought to my attention Nico's third studio album, Desert Shore, and the song Afraid, as he saw a similarity to Led Zeppelin's In the Light. I played it on YouTube during the live chat, and to my surprise, it sounds quite similar. But it doesn't stop there. Track 1, Janitor of Lunacy, has a drone type intro that I can also identify as an influence for In the Light. Now, is there a Nico and Led Zeppelin connection? There sure is. Jimmy Page played guitar and produced her first single, 1964's I'm Not Saying, written by Canada's own Gordon Lightfoot. There's also John Paul Jones playing with Roy Harper at Hyde Park 1974, where Nico performed that very same day. Music is one big universe of inspiration, it seems. Welcome to the making of Physical Graffiti, Series Finale, Episode 4. As we saw on episode 3, mixing and package design sessions for Physical Graffiti were done by November 1974. A tentative release date was set for November 29th, but discarded in favor of the New Year momentum just around the corner, and some printing delays of course. In the meantime, Swan Song Records kept themselves busy with the release of the Pretty Thing Silk Torpedo, which had a tough year on Billboard's 200 chart for 1975, peaking at 104 in early April. Bad Company was in the mixing stage of their follow-up, Straight Shooter, recorded back in September 1974 at Clearwell Castle. With engineer Ron Evison on board and Hypnosis designing the artwork, it was a gold record waiting to hit the stores in early April 1975. Swan Song issued a press release on November 13th announcing that Zeppelin's 1975 return to North America, with references to the band's 1973 Tampa Stadium record and Physical Graffiti, quote, expected to ship gold with orders over $1 million. It was a shot of adrenaline for concert goers in the United States and Canada. A list of 16 dates in the East Coast and Montreal's Forum was announced, with just 3 concerts later rescheduled. The press release also stated leg 2 of shows to begin in early March. All 16,500 tickets for the band's show in Detroit were sold out in 4 hours. Hot new albums filled record store shelves in November 1974. Thin Lizzy's Nightlife was produced by Graffiti and Bad Company's engineer, Ron Nevison. Queen released Sheer Heart Attack, while Deep Purple was all about Stormbringer and losing Ritchie Blackmore in 1975. Former Deep Purple bandmate Roger Glover had a brilliant debut album that scored big on the charts with hit single Love Is All. Genesis' ambitious double vinyl filled with New York vibes was almost prophetic to Physical Graffiti, never mind recording this monumental piece at Headley Grange soon after Led Zeppelin's visit. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway was the last album with frontman Peter Gabriel. I think Rael went to St. Mark's Building 96 but didn't tell anyone. We should ask Mr. Gabriel about this. Yes elevated their progressive rock genius with their Relayer masterpiece, and Baker Gurvitt's Army's debut album had Ginger Baker leading the way to hard rock excellence, with John Paul Jones's friend, Madeline Bell, on vocals. Led Zeppelin's tour rehearsals began in the West London area of Ealing on November 26, 1974. Jimmy's Dunn electro guitar was back after 1970 for In My Time of Dying, while Kashmir was played on his Les Paul. Preparations for their upcoming tour were made from a very different place than before. For the first time in their careers, they were no longer the underdog, but top dog, with carte blanche, the world at their feet. A Bohemian Rhapsody indeed. You see, 1975 was the only North American tour in their 12-year existence, with nothing to prove. 1969 and 1970 were the traveling band years. 1971 saw them venturing into the ambitious sounds of the fourth album. They battled through 1972 in the shadow of the music paper's coverage of the Rolling Stones. 1973 was a championship moment in every sense, from peak improvisation to astute marketing reminding everyone how they were bigger than the Beatles. 1977 was the comeback after Robert's accident and their feature film Momentum. 1975 had a double album, but what was the angle for the media? What was the struggle? They couldn't tell the press Jonesy almost quit the band in late 1973, nor talk about Robert's vocal surgery. Led Zeppelin were swan song businessmen now, with Bad Company bringing in a big pile of riches. Zeppelin wasn't the most dangerous point for a band, a place of crazy idolization and fame that exacerbates bad habits, if any, and leads humans into the lottery pitfalls of ego. According to Peter Grant's book Bring It On Home, this was the first tour where hard substances were no longer discretionary, but as important as the PA system and instruments. Now, I'm not interested in naming names, but there are hundreds of alleged stories of heroin gaining an unfortunate momentum as a new cocaine in the rock and roll business, roadies included. Led Zeppelin's 10th North American return amplified the larger-than-life status of their 1973 personas, with Peter Grant keeping a very tight grip control of the operation, morphing into a music corporation. There was to be a bigger everything: lighting, lasers, special effects, a neon logo, a drum riser, and of course personalities, with every band member intensifying their traits, strengths, and weaknesses. John Paul Jones grew particularly recluse on this tour, to the point of invisibility. 23-year-old Neil Preston was brought in as the official photographer for the 1975 tour, thus why it's one of the best visually documented periods for the band. Capturing one of Robert's most iconic images at Kezar Stadium certainly got Preston enough credentials to join the Swan Song madness. So what did Led Zeppelin's setlist look like for 1975? You'd think they would play a lot of numbers from Physical Graffiti, right? Based on the concert information, they did Kashmir, Sick Again, Trample Underfoot, In My Time of Dying, the Wonton Song, and one alleged attempt at Custard Pie early in the tour. That's 6 songs out of 8 new tracks recorded for the album. While it's understandable they left out In the Light due to technical limitations to make it work, 10 Years Gone remains a great what if. You think they needed Jones's triple neck guitar to make it work? Not really. This was played on a single 12-string on the first leg of the 1977 tour, with Jonesy getting his custom triple axe in May. No other number from Graffiti was taken on the road, while songs like The Rover and Houses of the Holy could have been smash hits on stage. Robert Plant was learning how to use his post-1973 vocals and couldn't handle the outtake material, plain and simple. For the first time in their careers, 60% of the new album would not be performed to the public, which adds up to the idea that Graffiti should have been a single vinyl release. The 1975 tour is often a place of heated arguments and polarizing debates among Led Zeppelin fans and music critics. I will go through the many issues and challenges from this tour, but first I want to start off with the setlist. This is a comparison of the average setlist for the North American tours of 1972, 73, and 75. As you can see, there was a nice change of seasons after Houses of the Holy was released, yet the 1975 tour barely changed the structure, leaving the same opening number, with just 4 new songs replacing old tracks. This created a sameness in the concert experience that didn't affect ticket sales, of course, but signaled into a troubled turning point for the expectations upon them. This analysis is necessary so we can understand the context in which the Physical Graffiti compositions were premiered, and ironically, how more songs from the new album could have made this tour so much better. The improvisational element of No Quarter, Moby Dick, and Dazed and Confused was there, but their past magic was not knowing where these songs would go. By 1975, they knew where they should take them, and what the audience expectations were for a muscle they hadn't trained for a year and 5 months. It certainly hurt certain bandmates, except John Paul Jones, who had one of his best concert years ever. Since the post-Led Zeppelin narrative on 1975 has been to promote it as their live show apex, we the fans, the scholars, the ones who have listened to 1,000 hours of bootlegs, we know it is filled with many magical moments, but it's not their best. So what makes it different and worth revisiting? Well, the Physical Graffiti numbers, of course.
Coming on down to midnight, and the 1975, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Happy New Year!
This is WLIR 92.7, and that was Led Zeppelin. You said, yeah, it sounded almost right, but not quite right. Well, that was an alternate take of the Wanton song.
Tickets for Madison Square Garden went for sale on January 4th. All 3 nights were sold out by Sunday afternoon. Nassau Coliseum tickets had a similar scenario, with a sold-out status on the very same day they were available, that being Monday, January 6th. Things were not civilized at Boston, where all tickets were sold out on January 5th, but an angry mob of 2,000 concertgoers thrashed the Boston Garden's concession stands, arena, and Celtics locker rooms. This resulted in Mayor Kevin White refusing to issue a license for Zeppelin's concert. Thus, the February 4th date was cancelled and rescheduled for Nassau Coliseum. A January 7th press release by Swan Song expressed the label's disappointment with the incident. The band never came back to Boston after this. All tickets for leg 1 of the 1975 tour were sold out by January 8th. Now let's take a look at the tour dates. Led Zeppelin followed their 1972 playbook and played 2 warm-up shows in Netherlands and Belgium, this time switching Amsterdam's Oude Rij for Rotterdam's Ahoy Holland. They repeated the same venue in Brussels though, at the Forest National, where they had performed on May 28, 1972. The band's North American dates saw them revisit 10 out of 29 venues from their 1973 tour, and as you think, these were amongst the fastest selling tickets. What about the rest, you ask? Okay, here's some facts for you. This tour definitely opened new grounds for business, and because mega famous Zeppelin never toured the States so early in the year, concert promoters had to deal with sports seasons and other variables. Opening night at the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota was quite the throwback as the band played here on April 12, 1970. Both Richfield Coliseum and Market Square Arena opened its doors for concerts in 1974, making Led Zeppelin's visit a crowning moment in adding their names as a part of the rock and roll circuit. Greensboro Coliseum picked up concert steam since the early 70s, with 1974 having Elton John, Yes, and Deep Purple. Pittsburgh Civic Arena was a second time for Zeppelin after March 30th, 1970. They also returned to Nassau Coliseum, the Forum in Montreal, and Philadelphia Spectrum. All these venues they played back in June 1972. Landover's Capitol Center had 8 shows in December 1973 and 57 in 1974, with big names like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Having Led Zeppelin in 1975 was long overdue. Second leg of shows included Baton Rouge LSU Assembly Center, which started off slow in 1972, but by 1974 had the king himself, Elvis Presley, played 2 nights here. Led Zeppelin returned to Long Beach Arena for 2 shows since June 27, 1972. This venue was absent from their 1973 dates in California, making it a nice addition next to San Diego Sports Arena and their legendary 3 nights at the Forum. Why no Kezar Stadium 1975, you ask? Well, Bill Graham already had the Snack Festival booked for March 23rd, and because Concerts West was the sole promoting company working with Zeppelin, working with any other promoter was out of the picture. Despite the grandiosity of the 1975 tour, there's a strange logistics choice on several dates, which I'm sure was a nightmare for roadies and drivers involved. All 3 nights at Madison Square Garden were spliced in between other shows. So thanks to my dear patrons who fund my crazy research, I checked the NBA schedule for the Knicks 1974-1975 season for answers. So they played a home game on February 4th against the Lakers, forcing Zeppelin to cover Nassau Coliseum and Montreal's Forum before coming back on February 7th. The Knicks then played a February 8th home game against the Celtics, while Zeppelin played Philadelphia's Spectrum that night. Going back to Nassau Coliseum on the 9th was impossible, as the New York Nets played a home game against Virginia Squires. Past their Capitol Center show on the 10th, Led Zeppelin played their third and best show at the Garden on February 12th. Then they were back at Nassau Coliseum for 2 dates. March had another weird schedule with 2 Long Beach Arena shows in the middle of the San Diego Sports Arena series. And last but not least, there was the same scenario with Seattle Center Coliseum with 2 Pacific Coliseum shows in between. I checked the Seattle Supersonics games, and they played a home game on March 19th against Milwaukee. The 1975 tour had both Chicago Stadium and LA Forum at 3 shows per venue, just one more than 1973, where Zeppelin played 2 nights each. Now let's talk about the stage configuration. They replaced the 1973 mirrors for a big fabric laminate that created different color backdrops thanks to a more ambitious lighting system. Light bulbs were also placed on the edge of the stage for a marquee effect. Shoko added huge monitors next to Bonzo, which can be seen on different photographs in order to assist his new musical heights on the drum riser. Elevating Bonham above his bandmates was a gamble to the previous jam chemistry created around all 4 musicians close to each other. Playing long pieces like Kashmir or In My Time of Dying required a different kind of concentration that challenged any previous knowledge. While the stage area itself was not bigger, the new design made it seem more organized than the sometimes overcrowded space of 1973. This space was ideal for filming. Too bad they didn't capture any professional record footage on this tour. The band's image definitely lived up to the hype and expectations. They looked like superstars. Outfit-wise, all members wore different clothes throughout the tour, and let's remember Jimmy's iconic dragon suit was not premiered until Earl's Court in May. One of the most famous clothing styles, though, was Robert Plant's cherry blouse, worn on 26 of 37 dates from the North American tour.
Ford announces a no-nonsense $250 off the sticker price on not just any new car, but America's best-selling newcomer, Ford Granada. In a limited edition you can order now, specially equipped with new exterior trim, a new bench seat and vinyl door trim. Also $250 off on limited edition Granadas with options like stopping traction.
So like I said before, John Paul Jones remained the most consistent musician throughout the tour. Let's talk about the other 3 musicians in Led Zeppelin. Robert Plant was still learning to use his post-surgery voice when he faced a nasty case of influenza at the beginning of such a hype tour. This was a painful reminder of the UK tour of 1973. He was sick again. Now cancelling dates was not an option, and it further submitted his vocals to much stress, moving closer to permanent damage. How nobody suggested a vocal coach to protect Robert's money-making vocals beats me. It's not like they didn't have the money for it. He may have told the press back then this was their best tour ever, but he couldn't walk away from his high-range diminishing returns and warm-up time taking several songs in the set. He may have looked the part, but his vocals were suffering. Something happened to Jimmy Page along the way. There are many theories on his personal lifestyle choices affecting his chops, but the musical evidence shows a change in dexterity and phrasing. He was not a lesser rhythm player by any means, and the stage moves remained the same, but his lead guitar flow moved away from the daredevil approach of previous years into cerebral soloing as a songwriting tool within a composition. Jimmy injured his left-hand ring finger in January after getting crushed on a closing train door in London. The timing was horrible, of course, just 2 days before leaving for North America, forcing him to a resourceful three-finger technique for several weeks. And yes, that's what she said. Now there's the issue of his guitar tone, a never-ending topic in countless guitar forums. Both audience and soundboard recordings from the tour reveal his once beefy distortion going for a cleaner approach that worked in favor of Physical Graffiti's rhythm work, not so much for the old freestyle jams that he hadn't played since July 1973. Okay, now on to John Bonham, who like John Paul Jones was a part of the always reliable rhythm section that couldn't do no wrong. Bonzo didn't lose ability but was not as flashy on this tour, choosing a more restrained approach on fills and overall intensity. Yes, the graffiti numbers were long and he had to manage his energy well, but like Page, there are theories on his alleged personal lifestyle choices with a popular 70s problem, painkillers. Don't get me wrong, the first year of Bonham's drum riser era rocks hard. It's just a bit far away from his past all or nothing approach. Now, because I will do a single concert retrospective from this tour at some point in the future, I will stick to the Physical Graffiti material only for this episode. Let's check out some shows.
We have been very busy for 18 months, but we do not play very much. This is the second concert in nearly 2 years for Led Zeppelin. That's how it is. Tonight we're going to do new songs from the new LP Physical Graffiti, which comes out soon. John Paul Jones was once again a very good orchestra. Cost a lot less than an orchestra too. This is another new track from Physical Graffiti. This is another song of lust. A little habit I picked up after meeting Phil Carson, one of my idols. This is called the Wanton Song. This is a track called Trampled Underfoot. It's about a topic that we're not really very familiar with, that of females. And so we got a long way to go before we really refine this line of melody, if you like to call it that. This is called the Wanton Song.
Second leg of the North American tour was announced via press release on January 22, 1975. One concert that stands out here is the March 8th date at West Palm Beach International Raceway. Organized as Florida Rock, the event was cancelled on February 28th after concert promoters failed to provide the necessary conditions for a rock show. Not being able to play in Florida was sad news for Swan Song Records. Plans were made to try to get a last-minute venue down there, but were shut down as it was too late and the band's schedule was already set. The victorious Boeing 720 Starship from July 1973 was hired by Deep Purple in early 1974, followed by Elton John later that year. Thus the red and blue paint scheme changed. By the time Zeppelin hired the aircraft for a full-time job, they decided to leave the paint job as is. A place to relax before arriving at electricity-charged venues. It was a moment to space out and enjoy their success, with their main headquarters being the New York Plaza Hotel. Flying to a show and coming back further isolated them from the world. 1975 had Led Zeppelin busy beyond the stage, with Atlantic Records hosting a party at New York's Penn Club in close proximity to the Plaza Hotel. As we can tell from the room information, the operation ran smooth, but closely guarded from visitors. The band's relationship with the critics, more specifically Rolling Stone, moved in a positive direction for once, thanks to upcoming rock journalist Cameron Crowe, whose job was to work with bands that hated the magazine. Getting close to Robert Plant and Jimmy Page was an incredible feat. A photo shoot for the March 13th issue took place, but technical issues with the camera made it unusable. Thus the final cover we see here was chosen. Queen Magazine's Lisa Robinson contributed her own share of stories for a February issue, and other publications followed as well. Past Rush's Fly By Night, AC/DC's High Voltage, and John Lennon's Rock and Roll, Physical Graffiti was released on February 24th, 1975. In between their St. Louis and Houston shows providing a short vacation time, Led Zeppelin's sixth record became the second best-selling album of 1975, just one spot above Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic, but one step behind Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, taking first place. Graffiti peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts in March, staying there for a new band record of 6 weeks, March 22nd through April 26th, beating all their previous entries. All the North American tour dates paid off. People were talking about the double album madness. Now, despite its heavy promotion, historic numbers for Graffiti rank at number 6 in total album sales, some 3 million units behind Houses of the Holy. Physical Graffiti remained a high point on the band's catalog for decades to come, and inspired other album covers as well. A sought item of double vinyl, single cassette, 8-track, and double CD case, its influence on music production was immense. From 80s glam and heavy metal bands trying to emulate the Rover, to 90s grunge following 10 Years Gone, and future indie projects going for the artisanal big room drum sound, it became a sonic pilgrimage for fans around the world. The album also defined Page and Plant's signature styles whenever they approached hard rock in their solo careers. Everything sounded like an extension of Graffiti. I recommend you check my post-Led Zeppelin 1990 series for a lot of Physical Graffiti moments revisited by both legendary frontman and John Paul Jones in 1999. Past its many releases in CD format, including box sets and remastered campaigns, We the Fans got a deluxe edition in 2015 with the addition of a third CD worth of material. The bonus or companion disc featured 7 cuts of powerful rough mixes like Brandy and Coke, In My Time of Dying, and Houses of the Holy, without post-production reverb nor guitar overdubs, revealing an even stronger rhythm section that puts in perspective just how insanely talented these guys were. We also got a short but exquisite early version of Sick Again, an alternate version of Everybody Makes It Through with Jones on keyboards next to Page and Bonham, a 1971 flashback Sunset Sound mix of Boogie with Stu, stripped away from post-production stuff, thus revealing a strong percussive feel. Driving Through Kashmir got some criticism from many fans who complained they couldn't tell the difference from the original. While they are very similar to each other, the orchestra is a bit higher in the mix, and some panning elements are slightly different, thus creating what Page himself described as a 3D effect. From all the reissues, I must say the 2015 version was a major upgrade from the 90s, adding much clarity and vigor. My personal favorite though is the 1987 Barry Diamond mastering release, because it's the one I find to have the best sounding drums. So has making this documentary changed my overall perspective of Physical Graffiti? Somewhat, but I still don't like the studio version of Night Flight, but absolutely love the 1998 Page and Plant version in London, because Robert cannot do the high vocals, Jimmy shreds at the beginning, and the drum sound feels closer to the massive sound of graffiti. If only Night Flight was recorded by the 1974 version of the band, now that would have been a killer version of this song. So by the time Led Zeppelin was to play their last 3 shows of their 1975 tour in March, a Swan Song press release stated Graffiti was the #1 album in the world, plus all their previous records coming back to the charts, with their highest position at 83 with Led Zeppelin 1. Swan Song hosted a party in Los Angeles for one of their groups. On March 26th, the Pretty Things had played 6 shows in the United States, sharing the bill with different bands like The Strawbs, Kiss, and Bruce Springsteen. Swan Song had another musical weapon reserved for March 28th, with the release of Bad Company's Straight Shooter, managing to sell a historic 3 million copies and put themselves in the 15 best-selling records of 1975. Led Zeppelin stayed in Los Angeles after the tour was over. A midnight special interview by J.J. Jackson was recorded on March 30th, 1975, with the Pretty Things' own Phil May in attendance. The official broadcast was delayed until November, with Wolfman Jack himself sharing a quick retrospective on the band. Led Zeppelin went back to England and followed separate ways into personal agendas, before bringing their North American stage dimensions into one of London's biggest venues. Thank you, my dear patrons and PayPal supporters, for your generosity in funding my research and video production facility. I hope you enjoyed the Physical Graffiti story, and be sure to check my 3-part Elscored series for the rest of the 1975 story. See you there. Bye bye.